Hey everybody, I'm going to be showing you how to make a band mask if you're a wind player. That's everybody but the flutes, and percussion obviously isn't going to need one. Before we get started, you're going to need some things. First, you're going to need 2 masks, and you're going to need cloth masks. So I told everybody to check out the Dollar Tree. They're pretty cheap there. I'm just using my Halloween masks because I'm hoping to never need them again. Cross my fingers. And you're going to need some scissors to cut the masks apart. You're going to need needle and thread. So I'm giving everybody needle and thread, just these little teeny tiny thread things. They're very cute. You're going to need a Sharpie. You're going to need your mouthpiece. So like whatever kind of mouthpiece you play. And maybe some safety pins if you tend to make a mess like I do. And disclaimer, I have 2 degrees in music and none of them in family consumer science. So let's get started. All right, so we have a couple of different options for masks. The first option is if you feel like spending like $20, you can buy one online. Just Google musician's mask. Gator Cases makes one, ProTech makes one, but like I said, they're about $20. You can make the one, and we've talked about this in class already, but you can make one that's like 2/3 and 2/3, and then you end up with like a little slit that's going to go in between them. And that's the one we're going to make second. The other option is the one we're going to start with, where you're going to end up with one mask with a hole in it so you can put your mouthpiece in your mouth and play, and the other one's just going to be like a drape over top of it. So that's the one we're going to start with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my mask on. My mask is on, and I'm going to put it however I would put it to play. So let's assume first that I'm a trumpet player. My mouthpiece is going to go right here. So I'm going to take my mouthpiece, I'm going to put it where I play, and then I'm going to take my Sharpie, and I'm just going to like draw around where a mouthpiece goes. And like I said, this is not the most elegant thing. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to end up with the circle on the skull's face here. And I'm just going to cut a circle out there. And my second case here is going to be the clarinet. The clarinet hole is going to need to be bigger than the trumpet hole. And so I'm going to use the clarinet to actually base this off of. And you can see the circle that I made, but I'm going to turn this upside down so that I can actually show you this hole. This hole is going to be different than if I were playing the trumpet. So if you play the trumpet, you're going to, now I have Sharpie all over my trumpet, but you're going to cut out a hole, maybe a teeny bit bigger than it actually needs to be so you can stick it in there. For the clarinet, I'm going to make my embouchure because when you play the clarinet, you drop your, see? You probably don't see. So you drop your mouth a little bit. So I'm just going to take my Sharpie. And first I'm just going to put a circle in the middle. Put one there. There. The corners of my mouth. And now that I have marks on my mask, I can take the mask off. And you can see I've got marks for where my mouthpiece will be. Let me just test that and make sure that that's right. So I think that I missed. Make it a little bit bigger, like that. So now all I have to do is cut a little diamond out of this, like that. And I'm going to cut that out with my scissors, and I'll be right back. All right, I am back, and I saved you the pain of watching me attempt to cut. So I have a hole in my mask that I can fit right off here. So one thing you're going to need to do is prevent this from ripping more. And you can use, if someone in your house has something that they could use to stop the rip, there are different things that you can use. But you can also just take some clear nail polish and just paint clear nail polish here so that it won't rip. You can just use clear nail polish. If you have the kind of mask that I do, which you probably don't, it's fleece, it's probably not going to rip. But you can just paint some clear nail polish on this to make it not rip. You could also sew it, but you really don't need to do that. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to take a second mask, and we're going to make it so that we can just put that second mask basically on top of the first mask. But what we have to do is get this rectangle of fabric. And I had a couple of different ideas of what to do with this, but I think that this will work the best just because you already have these edges, the edges of this mask folded over and sewn nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the straps off of this, and yours may have different straps, or you may have other masks that you already have that don't have straps in it, or you might want to do something else. You're basically just making a drape to go over top of the hole in the first mask. So my mask has elasticy straps. I could cut these. I could untie them. I'm just going to cut them. So I'm going to cut the strap off of this and pull it out. Cut the strap off the other side. I'm going to pull it out. Maybe. There we go. So those are gone. And now I just have this rectangle. Now my rectangle has one of the little bendy things in it. I'm going to put that on the bottom so that whenever I'm playing, it is being weighted. You could put a pipe cleaner in there, or you could just not do anything with it. I'm going to leave mine there. I'm going to put it on the bottom. And then what I'm just going to do is stitch the top of this to the top of my other mask. So what I'm going to end up with, here's my mask that I've cut the little hole out of. I'm going to stitch the other mask to the top of this mask. So when I play, wherever that went, when I play, I'm just going to put right off through her hair and I'll play. And it's going to be fine. You could put a pleat in it so that it kind of gathers a little bit, or not. I'm not that fancy. I'm just going to stitch this whole thing to the top of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten the nose part of this mask, and I am going to stitch this. Remember, this is the heavy part. The heavy part's here. I'm going to stitch the top to the top and nothing else. And let's see how this goes. I'm just going to stitch it with my needle and thread. And I will be right back. Just to check in with you guys, I decided on this kind of stitch where I started in the back and I went through the front and then I looped over the top and then I went into the back, and somebody that knows what they're talking about probably knows what that's called. but it just kind of loops over the top to hold it in. So in the interest of time, I'm not gonna make you sit here and watch me attempt to sew. But this is the type of stitch that I decided on for this. So it's just gonna come through from the back to the front and kind of go diagonally from one stitch to the next stitch so that it's really uneven and terrible. If your parents have a sewing machine, that would be good too. So I'm gonna pause this and I'm going to finish sewing my top. Alright guys, so I've got this sewn the whole way across. There it is. I have it sewn the whole way across. And at the end you need to make sure that you knot it, and if you haven't already had sewing, I probably should have made this thread just a little bit longer, but you take your last loop and then you have to pass the needle through your last loop like that, and then you get a little knot, and then you can cut it and then you're done. So now I have my mask with the hole and the one with the drape over top of it. So this is what my final, don't judge the sewing, it's pretty bad. So you have this is the top. I've sewn the whole way. See, so it's connected the whole way along the top. And then I have just this bottom part that's just hanging there. So if I put it on, now I have this super stylish mask with a little nose piece here, and then this is going to hang down because I have another nose piece there. And I can kind of bend that too so that it's kind of circular. So now I can take my clarinet and I can play and it's fine. So you may have to fold it up like that, depending on your instrument. We can be flexible with this. If I'm a trumpet player, when I'm playing my trumpet, it's there. When I take my trumpet out, this thing comes the whole way down. And then I'm done. So we have the bell cover on the top or on the end of the trumpet. You have this on your face. We're safe. So that is option 1. Welcome back to making a band mask. This is option 2, the slit in the middle. So this one's a little bit more complicated as I've been trying to figure out how to do this to show this to you. This one requires a little bit more time and sewing. So if neither one of those sounds good to you, go back to option 1 and make yourself a drape mask instead of the slit mask. The first thing we're going to do, well, the basic idea of this is that we're going to have 2/3 of one mask, 2/3 of one mask, and 2/3 of another mask. And when you put them together, you have this overlapping section, and then you can kind of tuck your mouthpiece inside. I don't know that this option is going to work for woodwind players at all. I will try when I am done with this. I didn't want to cut apart like 6 masks today because I'm out of Halloween masks, and I don't want to get into my winter masks because it's still winter. So I'm not really sure if this is going to be able to do it well with the woodwind mask without hitting the reed and making it not function. So we're going to try it and see how it goes, and I can always delete this video later if I need to. So what we're going to do to start, we're going to find, in my case, I have this glued in metal piece. And a lot of the masks have this metal piece in it. You can see it better there. This is glued in. And so this is going to dictate to me exactly how big this is going to be, which is actually pretty useful because the other one is the exact same kind of mask and has the exact same length of metal in it. So I'm just going to cut one side of each mask off, and I'm going to start by deciding which side I'm going to use. In this case, I'm going to make my skulls point down. So I'm going to cut off this side. I am going to get rid of this loop because it's going to be in my way. And I am going to find the spot where I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to fold it over. And just so that I can cut straight, I am going to pin it closed with some safety pins. You may not have safety pins. So once I get my mask pinned, now I can cut it. And I'm going to cut this whole piece off. I will be right back. So I'm done. Through the magic of pause and start, I am done. I can take off the pins from this side. And now I have, thought it was going to be 2/3, but it's really bigger than 2/3. I have this end that is no longer here. So now I have one section of this done. I'm going to do the same exact thing to this other mask, but I'm going to do it with the opposite side. So I have the metal thing. I'm going to cut from here over. So I'm going to end up with this side. And I'll be back after I'm done cutting that. All right, and I'm back. I have cut both of these apart. And now I have two identical partial masks. They're the same exact size. And these ones are the same kind of mask, so they have this metal thing in it that they're both the exact same size. The next thing I need to do, and this is where things are a little scary to me right now because I could very well just completely ruin everything I'm doing. Because if I stitch this together like this is a lot of fabric. This is a lot of fabric to have to like push aside to get to the other side to get to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make like a half moon, like a little crescent. So that it just makes it a little easier for it to do this. And that crescent's going to go about, it's going to go less than halfway, maybe an inch in on each side. So what I need to do that uniformly is I'm going to turn them so that they're facing each other. So I have like the front of one and the front of the other. And then whatever I do to one, I'm going to do to the other. So I'm going to cut just a little half moon shape like this. I'm going to make it the same. So this is where it's a little hairy. I'm going to match these up. And there we go. I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut basically like my skull right there to the center. So I'm going to cut like that, basically the little skull thing almost, out so that I can tuck it in one side and then the other. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. All right, so I folded this and I folded them together and I folded them in half and I cut just a little curve, almost the size of my little skull there. And when I unfold it, it actually turned out kind of how I wanted it to turn out, which is surprising. So I am going to pin this together and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So I have a little half circle on one side and a little half circle on the other side. Let me just really quickly show you what I mean. So if I have the top, I'm going to stitch the tops together right where the nose piece is. And I'm going to stitch the bottoms together right where the nose piece is. I may need to move them out a little bit just so there's room. And that's why I'm going to pin it and see if maybe I need to move it out just a little bit. So I'm just going to pin the bottom, and then I can show you what this will look like once I'm done sewing it. And then I'm going to pin the other side. Here's the other side. So you can see what it's going to look like when I sew it together. Obviously, you're probably not going to be using two masks that are drastically different patterns like these two are. So now I have two masks and two of those metal things. So now I should be able to put it under one and under the other. So then whenever you're done playing, you can just pull it out. And what's nice about this is that it's not gonna have, there's no hole in the middle. So you really can just do that and then take it out and there's no hole. Well, here's the question. I'll never read on it, but I think that would actually work. Yeah. So, once I get the final product, maybe it'll be okay. I do not have any air coming through this, so that's kind of nice. So the only thing left is to stitch here and to stitch here, and I think that I will make this not exactly vertically the same, and I will have a little bit of a gap down here compared to up there. I'll make that exactly the same up here, but then at the bottom I think I am going to give it a little tiny bit of gap just so that that works. So yeah, those semicircles I made are exactly what I wanted, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to sew together from here to here and from here to here. I'm gonna do the same kind of stitch I did with my first example, and it's called a whip stitch, where you bring it through, and I don't have my needle threaded yet, but you bring it through from the back and go around, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I will be back with sewing. All right, guys, update. I have my top stitched together. I have the whole top stitched together. And I want to show you, if you haven't had sewing ever before, that whenever you're done with this, and I cut it way too long, by the way, which I did because when I did the other kind of mask, I cut it way too short. You want to bring it through, from the back to the front and then loop your needle underneath it so that it comes out with a nice knot. And then you cut that off. So I'm going to do that. So now I'll show you what the top looks like. So I have the top finished. And that feels really sturdy. So now I just have to sew the bottom together and then I'll be done. I'm gonna give myself, like I said, I'm gonna give myself a little bit of give. Instead of it being exactly the same, I'm gonna bring it in just a little bit so that there's a little bit of a gather then. There's some space. Instead of it being super tight. I don't want it to be super tight like that. I want it to have a little bit of space, so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna give it a little bit of room. Okay, so I'm gonna sew that together exactly the same way from there to there, and I will be right back. All right, and again, just to show you how to tie off the end of this, you put it through and then you get a little loop and you tie it off and cut it, and then you are done. So I have the top of mine sewn together completely, the bottom of it sewn together completely. It's really nowhere near as nice as the top because I was kind of in a hurry, but sewn together. And now if I put this on, the moment of truth, if I put this on, I should be able to stick a mouthpiece to this side and then to that side and then back out when I try to blow through. Nothing comes out. So this is a decent design. So we end up having the top of it and the bottom of it stitched together, and then you have this semicircle in one side, and then in the back the semicircle in the other side, and that helps to guide the mouthpiece. Now, something that I saw, I have a little bit of an issue there, but I can just cut that, and not a huge deal. I can use some clear nail polish here so that this doesn't fray. Or if I really care, which I really don't, you can stitch this just very little teeny tiny stitch here at the bottom. If you want to do that at home, knock yourself out. I'm not going to do it because it's fine. You can also stitch here and here, just a little bit up, just to reinforce it a little bit, like there. I'm not going to do that, but you can. So we have a pretty decent example, and I can use my brass mouthpiece. I can also use I could also use the clarinet mouthpiece, but I really think that I would probably use the Drape one with the clarinet. Totally up to you. You guys can do whatever you want to do. But hopefully we can play safely, just like we did during marching band season, and not get anybody sick and have a really great time playing, and look really stylish at the same time. Like I said, hopefully you guys are using like different designs, but if you're not, this makes a statement too.